Why does Hollywood keep milking this franchise like Luke milking that giant sea alien?
Just stop! Just stop it! Stop! No! Just stop it!
Hello everyone, and welcome to another My Favorite Things. Today, obviously, we're going to talk about Jurassic Park and what makes it such a phenomenal movie. Jurassic Park has been one of my favorite films to watch for my entire life. I was able to pop it in at any time or catch it on TV even after seeing it thousands of times and still love it just as much. And it's probably thanks to this movie that I fell in love with paleontology in the first place. Hence why I chose the name Tim Rex. I talked about it in my last film fight about how certain movies grow up with you. As a kid, you may enjoy something for one reason, but as you grow older, you find more to appreciate about it. Jurassic Park is without a doubt one of those movies.
When I was a lad,
I fell in love with the dinosaurs and their scale, their majesty, their ferocity. Yeah, I've always loved Jeff Goldblum too, but it was always the dinosaurs that kept me coming back, and I'll certainly go in detail about them later.
and now that I'm grown up,
I enjoy the philosophical discussions, the themes, and the direction just as much. I'm sure there are some people who still think Jurassic Park is just about dinosaurs eating people and how cool that is, but like Spielberg's other classic, Jaws, there's so much more to it than people becoming lunch. Maybe there's not much more to the last two sequels, but for this one, and sort of The Lost World, the goal is to drive home a message to the audience through the use of dinosaurs. Okay, so let's dive in. Why is Jurassic Park one of the most iconic, recognizable movies ever made? How did this 1993 blockbuster shape the childhoods of millions for 25 years straight? And why is Jurassic Park one of my favorite things? We all know Jurassic Park. A group of experts are sent to Isla Nublar to give John Hammond's park a thumbs up to reassure his investors. Oh, but little did they know, all it took was one disgruntled fat guy with chocolate bar wrappers on his desk to take down much of the security and allow the Tyrannosaurus to break out. Then Velociraptors break out after Mace Windu resets all the systems and everything goes even further down the toilet. Gennaro is devoured, Nedry gets gooped on, Tim gets shocked, and Malcolm goes shirtless. What many people may not understand about Jurassic Park is that it's not necessarily about Jurassic Park. It's about an idea. The idea that with enough knowledge and intelligence, mankind thinks it can create and control anything it wants to. Jurassic Park is just an example of this. John Hammond and his company InGen think they can harness the power of genetics and gene splicing in order to create a modern wonder. They try to use animals that they know next to nothing about for a theme park attraction, so they don't really know the animals. Velociraptors completely catch them by surprise with their intelligence, and so does Dr. Malcolm, the main voice of reason who speaks out against Hammond and Dr. Wu. But even though Spielberg's adaptation of Michael Crichton's novel warns us about controlling forces we have not the slightest clue about, the idea of Jurassic Park alone has caused the imagination of the film's viewers to go wild. What if Jurassic Park was real? What would it be like if Nedry never goofed up? What if it could actually function like a normal zoo? It's just one of those stories that captivates your imagination. Man, Jurassic Park has some of the most unforgettable characters. I mean, do I need to remind you that Jeff Goldblum is in this? Within his first 5 seconds of screen time, he completely steals the show as Dr. Malcolm, a silly, snarky, wise, punk rock dude who studies chaos theory. This, at a very basic level, is a branch of mathematics focused on what seems to be randomness of complex systems. When there are so many variables to account for, even the slightest change can create major differences in a system, similar to the butterfly effect. So of course, it's Dr. Malcolm who attests to the unpredictability of the park, even when all the scientists and its creators talk like they have everything under their control. But all it takes is one tropical storm and one snobbish employee to turn the park upside down. Another great example that the film brings up is breeding. Dr. Wu is so sure that none of the dinosaurs can breed because they don't provide the developing animals the hormones needed to become male, so it's believed they're all female, to which Malcolm gives the famous,
"But life, finds a way."
And life does find a way through the small amount of frog DNA in their genome. So we see Ian constantly scolding people and delivering these wise speeches as he's the voice of morality in all this. He sees the uncertainty, the randomness, and the pridefulness of InGen and puts it all into question. John Hammond, the billionaire owner of Jurassic Park, I've gotta say, is a lot better than his book counterpart. In Crichton's novel, he's pretty much that typical, rich, cheap dirtbag who ends up getting his comeuppance when he's attacked by Compsognathus in the end. But here in the movie, he's much more human and less of an archetypal figure. You can tell that Hammond actually cares about providing an amazing experience for everyone in the world to enjoy, not just the super rich as he puts it. Most of the cheapness is passed on to Gennaro, who of course gets eaten right off the toilet. And John gives a pretty heartfelt monologue to Laura Dern's character, Dr. Sattler, about owning a flea circus, an illusion to entertain children. But this time, he wanted to give something that was real. So he has the best intentions, but falls into the trap of advancing scientific discovery without question. But thankfully, in the end, once the dino dung hits the fan, he realizes the error of his ways and agrees that this whole thing was a mistake. So I love how much they humanized him in the movie. Hammond isn't just some stereotypical 1% rich prick who only cares about money. He's an actual kind and caring person who just so happens to be filthy rich. The main protagonist in Jurassic Park is Dr. Alan Grant. Desperate for further funding for his dig team, he and his girlfriend Ellie Sattler go with Hammond to visit the island and give their opinions, like Malcolm and Gennaro, only to be wowed by seeing living dinosaurs. But a bit later on, they too question the idea of bringing dinosaurs back to life, arguing that these animals were plucked from millions of years ago into the modern world, and how their reactions are unpredictable, and how we know pretty much nothing about how to take care of them. Alan also gets a small arc, starting the movie hating children and scaring one who questions the awesomeness that is Velociraptor, or really Deinonychus, but the name Velociraptor sounds cooler. There's a whole backstory as to why they went with that name over Deinonychus, but that's not important right now. So Grant starts slashing this kid up in the beginning, only to bond with Hammond's grandchildren, Tim and Lex, as they're all trying to survive. The whole children thing is the main road bump between Grant and Sattler. The movie doesn't build tension with this, but it can be a hindrance on a relationship. In the end, Ellie wins when Grant gets attached to the kids. Too bad none of that matters, because we see in Jurassic Park 3 they don't end up together anyways. Why? Whose idea was that? It's so stupid. I just wish they stopped that too. But Universal has to keep milking that cow. One more small thing about the characters that might get overlooked is how human they actually talk. It doesn't feel overly scripted like it's trying to be some big dramatic movie. No, they talk like actual people. Again, it doesn't feel scripted. Like sometimes they stutter, they might mumble a bit, they take breaths. It doesn't feel like every line is supposed to be some major quote that you'll see on posters. They feel human and real in their interactions. So, I've kind of touched upon it already, but there are several important themes and morals in Jurassic Park, because remember, it's not about a dinosaur theme park, it's about the idea of a dinosaur theme park. So you can have a good JP sequel without having another park with more dinosaurs breaking out. Just understanding the purpose and meaning of Jurassic Park is enough for any sequel in my opinion, and that is where I think the last two predominantly fail, and it'll probably be the same for Fallen Kingdom. Possibly the main theme in Jurassic Park is science versus morality. Dr. Malcolm points out,
Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should.
Nobody questioned if whether or not cloning dinosaurs was the right thing to do. InGen scientists just went ahead and did it because they could, and they can make profit from it. But nobody asked the important questions, such as what kind of rights these animals should have. Are they even considered real animals, or are they purely InGen's property? Would the park owners be willing to kill such expensive creatures if they posed a threat to the guests? This is similar to BioShock, in which people wield genetic power without pausing to think of the moral implications of doing so, at 100 subscribers. In both cases, we see that when scientific achievement is never checked, disaster will strike, because segueing into the next idea, InGen is trying to wield a force they don't fully understand. Control is a major aspect of Jurassic Park. Us people think that with enough science and equations, we can just control whatever forces we like. Dr. Wu scoffs at the idea that the dinosaurs can breed because the scientists have control over their hormones, but what do you know? They breed. Muldoon thinks this highly secure hatchery would contain the raptors? Apparently not. This whole theme park attempts to use animals that no humans ever experienced as attractions, but who knows what these creatures are capable of? Who knows how they'll react to humans? John Hammond and InGen are so confident in their park that they don't heed the warning of the legendary Goldblum. We don't just see this in Jurassic Park though. This happens all the time in the real world. Businessmen using orcas for shows. What's a harmless animal in the wild quickly goes insane and becomes deadly, but they're used for cheap tricks. Humans using nuclear power for war. Heck, even when used peacefully, nuclear power plant failure is not unheard of and can end in Fukushima or Chernobyl-sized disasters. What about weather? Manipulating the weather was such a concern that the UN preemptively banned using it as a weapon of war. And de-extinction is a real thing now, not just science fiction. Scientists have brought animals back from extinction before and plan to with the woolly mammoth. So we can clearly see that Jurassic Park isn't just about dinosaurs running around eating people. It's about control and the place of morality in scientific discovery. It mocks how prideful we are, thinking we can manipulate anything we'd like, when in the end, such actions may literally come back to bite us. Before I jump into all the greatness that is these dinosaurs, there is a quick point that I want to address. This is a work of fiction. The dinosaurs in the Jurassic Park franchise are not accurate, so if you believe anything about paleontology that you learned through it, toss all that out the window. T-Rexes weren't blind, they actually had amazing eyesight. This isn't Velociraptor. Again, it's actually Deinonychus, but the name sounded cooler. Dilophosaurus couldn't spit venom and was much larger, and Brachiosaurus probably didn't rear up on its hind legs. Oh yeah, and feathers. But I'm not docking any points from JP for being inaccurate. All the dinosaurs work well in the context of the movie, so no complaints there. So anyways, the main reason why Jurassic Park is so ingrained in our culture's memory is because of the way it revolutionized dinosaurs. Ever since their discovery in the early 19th century, scientists viewed them as slow, lumbering, dumb, ferocious, cold-blooded lizards. We all remember those images of Tyrannosaurus dragging its tail and Brontosaurus in swamps.
What are you doing in my swamp?
For a long time, that's how they were actually depicted. But since the 1960s, paleontologists have completely shifted their view of these animals. Over time, it became more and more clear that these weren't cold-blooded beasts, but more warm-blooded, swift, and sometimes fairly intelligent animals, hunting in packs and working together in family groups. Dinosaurs no longer dragged their tails, but held them parallel to the ground as a long, stiff balancing rod. Although these discoveries were coming to light in the 60s and 70s, the public perception didn't catch up until 1993 with the release of Jurassic Park. This movie popularized the idea of fast, intelligent, warm-blooded dinosaurs. It even makes it a point to show how much more similar they are to modern birds than actual lizards, with their hollow bones and warm blood. The sequel even takes it a step further by showing all the dinosaurs as loving parents defending their children, something a swamp monster would never do. So even though certain details about the dinosaurs are inaccurate, their general portrayal is spot on. Now, I'm not gonna fangirl over paleontology, even though I very well could. Steven Spielberg was able to bring the dinosaurs to life so brilliantly with state-of-the-art special effects for the time. The use of CGI in film was just beginning in the early 90s, so Spielberg shut down the idea of using traditional claymation that was planned and instead went for this new tool, and man did it pay off. Although some of the CGI doesn't exactly hold up today, most of it still works, because Spielberg didn't swim in it. He used a combination of different techniques to portray the animals, using CGI, animatronics, and even a raptor costume. The use of practical effects was crucial. Computer-generated images are fine and all, but it doesn't look like something you can actually reach out and touch, even in this day 25 years later. When something is actually there, like the T-Rex or Triceratops, it registers more. We know it's actually there. We know Grant is actually laying on a Triceratops. This is something that Jurassic World failed so hard at doing. Only one animatronic was used in the entire movie, and it was the only emotional scene in that entire misfire. Everything else looked completely fake because it was all made with computers. It's sad that a 25-year-old movie looks far more real than something that came out 3 years ago, but that's due to the power of practical effects. Also, all the sound work is just brilliant. The noises and roars truly bring these animals to life. You've got those Brachiosaurus calls that I always fangirl over, those iconic Tyrannosaurus roars, the Dilophosaurus shrieks, the Trike rumbles, the Velociraptor screams, and of course, those chilling footsteps. With all this, you don't feel like you're watching animatronics or computer images, but actual animals. They feel so real and well realized. So, moving on from that, remember in my analysis of Jaws, how I mentioned the reveal of the shark and how the slow build-up contributed tremendously to the suspense? Not seeing our antagonist did wonders for Jaws, and Spielberg remembered that as he directed Jurassic Park. I directly linked his handling of the shark to that of the 3 velociraptors. In the film's opening, we get a tiny glimpse of one, only seeing her eye. Then an engine worker gets pulled into the raptor's cage and killed. Shortly after, we jump to Alan Grant digging up a Deinonychus, a velociraptor skeleton, in Montana. After this punk kid calls it a 6-foot turkey, Alan demonstrates to him how raptors killed their prey. One will stand in front and distract you, while a second will come at you from the side and rip you open, feasting upon your delicious flesh while you're still alive. So you get to watch your internal organs being gobbled up by this 6-foot turkey. Certainly sounds like a painful way to go. Maybe about 40 minutes later after the lunch scene, we visit Robert Muldoon, the head of security who keeps a close eye on the park's velociraptors. He describes their intelligence as they systematically test defense for weaknesses, and their ability to reach cheetah-like speeds of 60 miles per hour if they get out in the open. So again, we hear about how deadly these creatures are, and how this is something that you certainly don't want to encounter. We even get a hint of this when we see a cow get put in their enclosure and slaughtered off screen, shrouded by foliage. The remains are telling of the damage these things are capable of. Finally, in the final act of the film, as Sattler and Muldoon attempt to restart the power, we get the most terrifying sight. These extremely deadly predators escaped. It's horrifying. Spielberg perfectly built up the Velociraptor, giving us one of the most terrifying antagonists ever to appear on film. And that's all just a setup. The payoff is insane, but I'll get to that soon. You know, I can just keep going on and on about how well the dinosaurs were handled, but I think you get the picture. Jurassic Park made dinosaurs great again. Jurassic Park is one of those movies that gets referenced over and over again, and that's because there are tons of epic and remarkable scenes that ingrain themselves into our culture's memory. Since I was just discussing the raptors, that kitchen scene though. The velociraptors search around an industrial kitchen for Tim and Lex as they crawl around trying to survive on their own. It's one of those scenes that's just so intense that you're leaning all the way out of your seat and about to fall off. And Jurassic Park has plenty of those. The T-Rex breakout is orchestrated so perfectly. Of course, we all know the iconic tremors in the water as it approaches. You've got the disappearing goat whose leg ends up on one of the cars, Gennaro hiding in the bathroom, and later on in this sequence, we get the payoff for the setup of T-Rex having motion-based eyesight. She tries to get the characters to move so she can see them and kill them. Soon after, there's the epic T-Rex car chase.
Hey, come on! Slow down! Dinosaur overboard! Slow down! Ah!
And again, the animatronic work for T-Rex.
So good.
The blend of computers and practical effects totally sells it. Then there are the scenes that capture the wonder of dinosaurs, such as the initial reveal with the Brachiosaurus, when Alan has this childlike sense of awe on his face as he lays on the Triceratops, and when they feed the Brachiosaurus. Jurassic Park perfectly captures both sides of the dinosaurs. The carnivore feeding scenes are very suspenseful, yet we also get the majesty that gets the audiences to fall in love with these animals. And of course, I have to mention how much John Williams' score brings this film to life. As far as Williams goes, this is certainly among his long list of outstanding compositions. None of Spielberg's movies would be the same without them. Okay, so there are some minor issues to address. Most of them are just small scene-to-scene issues, but nothing too earth-shattering, thankfully. A good example of this would be the ending, when the Tyrannosaurus takes down the remaining 2 Velociraptors. I rarely ever like the savior that comes out of nowhere business in movies, and it doesn't make much sense here either. Don't get me wrong, it's a cool fight, but what are the odds that right as the Alpha Raptor is about to pounce on the protagonists, that the T-Rex decides to stop by and save the day? And didn't we establish that it has thunderous footsteps? So how come we didn't hear it coming? How come the highly intelligent raptors didn't hear or see this 8-ton, 40-foot long, house-sized behemoth coming towards them? You see what I mean? Small stuff like that. But there aren't any bad characters or scenes that derail the film or anything like that. Also, like when Ellie is running from the raptors into the shed, the same shot of her jumping over a log is used twice. And where did this massive trench come from? We clearly see the T-Rex come out from behind the fence, yet there's supposedly a massive drop there. So, as far as problems go, there's just not much to complain about. Man, oh man, is Jurassic Park awesome. It is without a doubt one of the most memorable movies ever made. So few films have achieved such a legendary status in culture as JP. This one 1993 film sparked a massive franchise, with sequels still coming out whether we like it or not, toys, video games, apps, fan novels, comics, and so on. There's just nothing like Jurassic Park. Even its own sequels can't measure up to it. It really filled that void of awesome dinosaur-based science fiction and spawned a whole new generation of paleontology fans. No matter what article I'm reading or what documentary I'm watching, they always have to mention this franchise in one way or another just because of how inseparable it's become from paleontology itself. I'm not a big fan of the original novel, but credit where credit is due. Crichton gave the world a whole new understanding of these incredible creatures and helped launch one of my favorite franchises of all time. Yeah, I know I give the last 2 sequels a lot of hate, but I can still view them as my guilty pleasures. Okay, maybe just 3. I may not have gotten so much into film without having the original trilogy with me growing up. I probably wouldn't have gotten into dinosaurs either. Who can I possibly be without the Tim Rex figure? How can I live in a world where I don't know what a Suchomimus is or Minmi? So, with its well-written characters, unforgettable soundtrack, gripping suspense, awestruck wonder, groundbreaking special effects, and important morals, Jurassic Park revolutionized dinosaurs for me and millions of others. And that is why Jurassic Park is one of my favorite things.
Well, there it is.
There it is.
Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to please leave a like and subscribe. See you next week.